everyone. My name is Jess, and I'm going to be telling you about my field school experience, which was in Chelva, Spain, kind of near Emma's, close to the city of Valencia. So this is a picture I took from where we were staying, which was slightly outside the town. You can see that's the town of Chelva in the background. So this program I found on the list written by Professor Morochik of possible field schools, and it stuck out to me because it relates to a very recent time period, the 1930s, in the Spanish Civil War. And that's kind of what I was looking for because I'm interested in historical archaeology. So the field school total cost was more expensive than average at $4,675. And then there's also plane tickets, but that included like food, housing, everything, supplies. So the BU archaeology program gave me $2,000, which went to the tuition cost, and that made it much easier for me and my parents to work through that. So thank you, BU archaeology program. I'm really glad I got to do this school. So the region that we were in was in Valencia district in Spain. If you can see, I don't know, oh, you can't see my mouse. There is the city of Valencia. This little heart here, that is the city of Chelva, where we were staying and where our lab was located. Over here is Madrid, but I didn't go to Madrid until after the field school. And then here, the close-up on the city of Chelva. So the Palacio is where we had our lab. So this is actually a historical site, and they just put some tables in it, and we got to work there, which was very cool. So literally, you'll see pictures, but under our feet was an archaeological site. This was just an area that I liked in Chelva. I'm sure I have a picture. The lavadero was like the old wash house, very beautiful view. So I went there like on my time off. And then this convento is where we stayed. It's literally a convent from the medieval era that they, fixed up, restored, put beds in, and that's where we lived. So since this is in Valencia area, it's a very interesting culture. This is our flag. So everyone spoke Valencian or Catalan as well as Spanish and taught us a little bit. We didn't talk about politics, but there's a major separatist movement to separate away from the country of Spain. And we occasionally saw hints of that in the graffiti, like when we went to Valencia City. Sometimes you walk around, you see like, I don't know, Valencia, we want to be our own country. We also saw the effects of the Spanish Civil War, which was what our historical research was related to. Basically, everyone we talked to had family stories about it, had their parents or grandparents who experienced it. So that was fairly harrowing, and it also I feel like the work we were doing was very important because this was such a recent occurrence for the people of Valencia. And this is Valencian paella that our professor made for us. It was very nice of him. He finished making this at around like 2 a.m. and I had actually gone to sleep because I thought he was never going to finish it, so I just went to bed, and then I get like a knock on my door, and I'm like, what is it? I get up, and it's our professor, and I felt so bad. He was like, the paella's ready. So I really appreciate the hospitality there was wonderful, and I'm sorry to my professor, I yelled at him a little bit. So the project we were doing was with the University of Valencia, so our professor, Professor Llorens Alapont, works there. And so this is a project to excavate mass grave sites of people killed during the Spanish Civil War or after by the Franco regime. So the remains that we executed were, excavated and researched were from people who were executed in the town of Castellón, which we didn't actually get to go to because it was too far away, but since it was still in Valencia district, the remains came to us to be studied. And there were a few other locations that we visited as well. So the researchers for this project from U Valencia used written and oral testimonies of people who witnessed the executions, which helped them piece together who was who, where they were located, what exactly happened on these days. And then some of the remains have been analyzed by DNA and reunited with living family members because, again, this is a very recent time period. So some of them have been reburied by their family members with marked graves, which is, I think, a very positive thing. So these are just some pictures of us outside the lab, and then this is what the lab looked like. So this is an archaeological site under our feet, and these boxes each contain the remains of the people who were executed by Franco's regime. So each one of these boxes is a person. And we actually had to carry them around, put them in the trunk of the car, drive them around. So, it was kind of interesting. just to see that experience. So they traveled a long way, and this is where we were able to set up and finally start identifying them. We also took some outings with the professor and other guides. We went on the weekends. We would sometimes travel hours away. Professor Llorens took us to numerous Civil War sites, some of which he had excavated and other people nearby had excavated. Some small villages and Teruel, which is a city. We walked through some trench sites from the war, and we saw some artifacts from the war. This is an interesting place. This is another one of the villages where people were executed by Franco's regime, and this is a mass grave that has already been excavated. The people have been identified, and their family members have set up this sign with pictures of who they were, their names, these illustrations, and reburied them so it can be a more respectful site. So we went to see something like that. This is in a larger cemetery, so these mass graves, they're not like in the middle of nowhere, but they are in the cemeteries. They're just in the non-Catholic section because that was supposed to be, unfortunately, like a humiliation for the people who would be executed, that even if they were Catholics, they would be considered non-Catholics because they didn't support the Franco regime. So that's where these were located. And then my favorite outing that we went on was to the town of Belchite, which you can see a picture here. So it's a town in Aragon region that was the site of a major battle during the Civil War. And then after Franco's victory, he declared that the town should be preserved as a monument to the war and the losses. So there is a new area of Belchite where people actually live, but this is old Belchite, and it's perfectly preserved, except for like it looks very brown because of dust, because it's outside. But everything is perfectly preserved. Basically, it looks exactly as it would have after the bombings at the end of the war. So you can see here, they have some images of what it looked like during the height, and then this is what I saw. So it's almost identical. I felt like I was using my archaeologist skills, because if you look at places in these images, like if you see this building, you can see it has two different colors. It has a brown, it has a white. That is this building over here. So I could look at these photos, match them up to the real life locations. It's very harrowing, to say the least. So then what did I do over the course of this program? I analyzed 3 different skeletons, submitted reports on all of them. So now they're going off to be DNA analyzed. So I can't say that I conclusively identified them, because we're waiting for the DNA to do that, but we did find some interesting identifying features. I can't tell you for privacy reasons like who's who, but some of the things I found included someone had the bones in their toe fused in an interesting way. Someone had a genetic disorder in their teeth that removed, I forget which teeth it was, but some of the teeth were missing. They just never grew in. And we had actually 2 skeletons that had that condition, so that means they were probably related, because these are from Castellón, and Castellón is a pretty small town, so probably these were family members. We also saw gunshot wounds, obviously, in relation, so some of them we could determine cause of death, some of them we could determine a height if we had enough intact bones, so some of them we could say, you know, we're probably like 5'6" to 5'8", something like that. So I felt like, you know, very accomplished in these things, because every little detail that we find humanizes these people. And also, I just got to have a practical look at what it takes to pull this kind of project together, how you get these remains from here to there, what kind of considerations you need to have, ethical considerations, how you interact with the families of the victims, how you interact with the communities. So I'm really glad that I got to see how this kind of project is accomplished, and then what it means to me. I personally have a strong interest in conflict sites, which is one of the reasons I went for this field school in particular, because I have family members who are victims of mass killings like this. And since I know that I'll probably never be able to recover the remains of my family members for like a respectful burial, I would like to help other people if they can be helped. And luckily, there was a project at the University of Valencia, so I feel like if we can help even just these people who lost their family members in the Spanish Civil War, I think that's doing something. And so I'm really glad and I'm really proud of what we were able to accomplish. And I hope it brings some closure to the families, because also when you go over there and you meet the people of Valencia, you can see that this means a lot to them, and that this war is still a very prominent wound in the society. So if we are able to close that a little bit, I hope that helps. And then this is my thank you. This is me. This is plastic. This is not a real skull. The real ones do not look that nice. This is our, I think we named him Freddy. It was our like test thing, so we could see what the skeleton was supposed to look like. Anyway, so I want to give a thank you to everyone at the BU Archaeology Department, Professor Murochik, Berlin, Marston, and everyone who decided to give me the funding. Professor Alapon, Juanjo, Yolanda, Jose, Maite, and the residents of Chelva, the families of the victims, my fellow students, and my parents. Thank you.
Any questions for Jessa?
Thanks, Jess. That's interesting. Can you tell us just a few more comments about what the local community reaction is to a project like this? Are they universally in favor of it? Are there people who oppose disturbing a mass grave like this?
As far as I know, I think they were relatively in support, but then again, they were very much trying to protect us, our professors, so I think they wouldn't have really let us interact with people who were not in favor of this. But everyone we met were very supportive, and there have been a lot of other efforts. Like we saw when we went to that cemetery, we saw a lot of other efforts to memorialize the victims and to excavate the graves or rebury them in other locations that weren't part of this project. So we know that at least other people have